Well, howdy everybody, welcome back, Hair Metal Mondays. We are rolling! That's right, Hair Metal Mondays. And today I thought, versus like showing a bunch of riffs, I thought I would show something that I always consider to be the 80s minor scale. It's just, it's the scale that so many of those famous, iconic 80s guitar players used. And it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid scale between, I guess basically three scales kind of put into one. If you want the tabs, you can snag those down below, and I'm also going to break down a couple licks from inside of that solo that I did on the intro. And let's just get with it, I'm going to be doing a full 80s course here very, very soon, but I figured, we'll test the waters and see what you think about this 80s metal scale. Alright, so basically the scale that I'm talking about is a hybrid between your minor pentatonic, your blues scale, and it's a modal kind of thing, the Aeolian mode. And basically it looks like this. That's it, that's the 80s scale. Now obviously the trick to it is using it all over the place, not just in this one position, but I just want to show it to you in this one position. Now like I said, if you already know your minor pentatonic scale, then you already have 5 of the 8 notes of the scale that I'm about to show you. And if you know your normal minor scale, well, you only need to add 1 note to it. So essentially this, and I'm going to kind of break down how I use it, like I said, and go into the actual kind of like mechanics of what I'm thinking of when I'm doing this stuff. But basically, think of it as your Aeolian mode or your A minor scale with the flat 5 in it. That flat 5 is such a crucial, just 80s metal note. So we're going to go 5, 7, 8 on the low E string. Okay? Now you're going to hop down to the A string, and we have this big chromatic section because we've added the flat 5 now. So you're going to go 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So it might seem kind of strange, but you have to remember that you can use this stuff. You don't have to use all the notes all the time. That's the biggest thing about any of these hybrid scales where you kind of like take notes and create your own scale. You don't have to always play it like this. You could go... I didn't even use the flat 5 that time, or maybe I want to use the flat 5. So just remember, you don't have to use all the notes all the time. Now next we're going to go down to the D string, and this one's going to go 5, 7, and then 9. Now there are a lot of other notes we can add to the scale if we wanted to. I'm just kind of, like I said, we're dipping our toes in it a little bit here to get this under our fingers. Now this is where I like to alter the scale, because I see people do one thing that always... I won't say it drives me crazy, it's just I hate when there's 2 notes in a row that are the same. So on the G, I go like this. I go 5, 7, 8. Like a lot of you guys probably know from your blues scale. Now what happens is, normally your minor scale would look like this. It'd go 5, 7, 9 again on the G. Now the issue is that's the same note that happens on your B string. So what people either do is they keep, on the G they'll only play 2 notes, which I hate that. That's just for myself. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I hate that there's not an equal amount of, of notes on that string. So I like to go like this. So on that B string, it's 5, 6, 8. And the high E string is, of course, going to mirror our low E string, which is 5, 7, 8. Okay, so we have... Now already, like I said, these are such quintessential notes into the 80s. Now, just playing the scale itself isn't going to make it sound 80s. You have to learn how they use the scale. That's the biggest key part. Understand, you know, the 80s, some people make fun of the 80s, but they were incredibly talented guitar players and all very dynamic. Like when you really listen to the solos, listen to guys like Paul Gilbert, Nuno Bettencourt, Warren DeMartini, Vito Bratta, all these guys, incredibly dynamic. And a lot of them, actually all of them, used this scale pretty much. Nuno used the scale. He's kind of the exception. He doesn't really sound like, to me, the standard kind of like 80s minor shredder. Alright, and for the scale, it's also kind of covered up here in your higher octave. Obviously, this is where a lot of that 80s magic happens, all the way up here. So, same scale, I'm just going to show it to you real quick. 17, 19, 20 on the high E string, or on the low E string. Big old chromatic section, 17, 18, 19, 20. My fingers barely fit. On the D string, it's going to be 17, 19, 21. On the G, 17, 19, 20. High E string, 17, 18, 20. I'm sorry, that was on the B, not the high E. On the B string, on the high E string, 17, 19, 20. And that's, you know, the same exact thing, just an octave higher. So that's the scale, and I thought I would kind of explain how I used it in the intro jams, because there's, you know, it was all the same scale. Everything I did was just out of this scale. And basically what happened here is, let's take a look at that one lick I played. I did this little octave lick in there after the... Now that's all still the scale. I'm in a different position, so we're not going to cover that. But I did this little move here. I went... And if you look at that, I'm basically right in the scale shape that we learned. I'm going 5 on the low E string, 7, 8 on the A, and I do an octave. So I go 7 on the D, 9, 10 on the G, then I go to 10 on the B, and then 12, 13 on the high string. And it's literally, look at that. Right out of that scale, that's what I was talking about before, is that you don't have to use all the notes all the time, you know? One of the cool things about 80s guitarists is a lot of times they had big intervals between their notes. And I'm going to kind of break down that melody that I played too. And it, to me, it's fascinating just because you can see how the intervals are. Some of them are right in line, and sometimes there's these big jumps. Now that lick that I did there, I'll break it down. I'm going to break it down in the lower octave down here. Now, what I'm going to kind of do here is I'm just going like this. Like, here's the scale. I'm going. Now, this note I didn't show you in there, but essentially it's just the same thing as 7th fret on the high E string. It's an octave. That's the other thing. You have to like learn how to adapt the scale and use the notes you already have, because even though I only showed you this one position, you actually know way more if you use your octaves of the notes that I already showed you. You actually have a huge map of the fingerboard now. It just takes time to kind of like visualize it and see it. So I'm going... That's all that lick was. But, you know, like I said, I'm not just playing it like a scale. I'm bending, I'm sliding to certain notes. And essentially I start right here. I'm starting on 7 and I bend up to 8. And I do a pull off. I bend up, let it come back down, and I pull off to 5. I go to 6. Then I go to 7 on the G. I go to 5, and then I slide down to 4. I do a little half step bend. I bend it back to where it was. 5 on the D, 7 on the A, all the way down to 3 now. Now, those are actually little chords that are in here. That first thing, that's just a good old D minor. And basically I go, boom, E minor's right there. Okay, so then I hammer back on to 7, 5 on the D, I go to 4 on the G. Now, this part is kind of tricky because it's not a half step bend, it's a full step bend with your pinky, and it's real quick. I go 7 with my pinky, and I bend it up a full step, and I let it come back down. So I go. Alright, so after that big kind of full step bend here, I go pull off back to 4, back to that 5, 7. Now I'm going to do 3 hammer on 7 to get on the A. Back to 5, 4, and then I go back to 5. Then I do a big vibrato. Something along those lines. That's the way it's tabbed out anyway, so it's very similar to the lick that I played. Now what I did though, of course, was I was just up here an octave higher. Something like that. Like I said, it was kind of like improvised, so I was just kind of breaking down the general idea of what I was doing. But I thought that was a fun one too. And like I said, if you look at it, you can see how I'm just totally following the scale. Okay? Alright, so let's break down that melody a little bit. Now obviously I played the melody all the way up here. Then that, you know, kind of that faster shred lick. But what I was doing was literally just walking through the scale, and I think it showcases it really well if I play it down here. So this is the melody, right down here, out of that, you know, literally all the notes are right out of this box that we just learned for the 80s scale. That's the melody, right there. Look at all the notes. But what's, to me, what's interesting is sometimes there's big intervals, sometimes it just walks straight down the scale. So I'm going, so it's 5 to 8 on the B, and I roll my finger and I get 8 on the highest string. Then 7, then 5 on the highest string. Then 8, okay, back to the 5, and then 8, 7, 5. I didn't tab this out. But I said if you look at it, that's the melody right there, and it's all literally just walking through the scale. Now, when you play it like that, it sounds like a scale. I was just adding some of that melody, some bends and slides and little like bits of phrasing. Like I said, it's all the little things that make the scale come alive that you have to add to it. But it's just all about getting that blueprint. And like I said, when I broke it down, I realized, I'm like, look at that, it's just walking right through the scale. So that was the melody section on it. Alrighty guys, that is it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Like I said, here in Metal Mondays, we're just gonna keep rocking with these. I got a cool one coming up with my buddy Michael Nielsen, and more guest solos and all kinds of stuff are on the way. So other than that, I'm gonna bounce on out here. Make sure you get the tabs. Make sure you are just cranking up some 80s. And I'll see you all next time, guys. Later! Woo!